All right. We are live. Let's get the Amazon going. And we'll go live there. And we are up and running. So, everybody, is zoom my camera out here a little bit. Today, we are going to set up the Chuwi Larkbox. This is one of these lower cost mini PCs. And this one is running with a Ryzen processor, but an older one, the 3000 series. And I have a suspicion that these 3000 series Ryzens are getting dumped on the market, which is why you're seeing a lot of mini PCs being constructed with that processor, which is an older chip. So we're going to explore what this one looks like. This is, as far as like, if there is such a thing as a name brand mini PC, this one is probably in that bucket. It's one of the more well-known mini PC brands. And I'm just going to put the specs in the chat because I know people will ask. So this is a Ryzen 3700U, which is not a bad processor. It's just not going to be as quick as the 4000 and 5000 series chips are right now. So it's a little behind the 8 ball on that. But it has 8 gigabytes of RAM, 256 gigabyte NVMe, and it has 2x 2.5 gigabit Ethernet. So this might be a device that you could look at for running like a little router. You know, if you had, what is that router that everybody runs? You know what I'm talking about, the open source router software. Why am I blanking on that? Why am I blanking on it? Nigel is here, also from the UK. Roman is here. David Langley from Wales. Lots of folks from across the pond today. And thank you, Brian and Joe, for your reminders of pfSense. It's funny, the chat runs behind. It runs about 20 or 30 seconds behind what I'm actually saying. It's kind of funny how that plays out. All right, so let's open the box up here and see what's inside. We're going to take it apart also, and I'm going to record some B-roll because I'll be reviewing this a little bit later, probably tomorrow, after I've had some time to play with it. And typically we see these, they're becoming more and more common, but Ryzen-based mini PCs are not as prevalent as the Intel ones. But we're starting to see that shift. But remember, this one has the 3700U and not the newer Ryzen chips. And we got some other folks popping in here. Darth Bane is here, and Jacob is here, and Stanko is here from Bulgaria. Welcome. I hope everything is going okay over there. A lot of attention focused on that portion of the world right now. And KF Videos wants to know how much. So I've got an Amazon link in the video description. I believe I do. Let me double check, make sure that I put it in there. And I think right now it's about 400 bucks is what this one goes for. Let me just make sure I got the right link in there, because sometimes I forget to paste it in. Yep. Nope, wrong link. Hang on a second. Let me fix the link. So I will give you an updated link because I forgot to put the right link into the video description. That will fix it. All right, so now I have a new link in there, and that link is the corrected link. So this is where you go to go find it on Amazon. But it's $400. They've got a coupon for $25 off, which brings it down to like $399. So let's take a look at the innards here of the box. And you get yourself a power supply. And it looks like they've got a VESA mount in here as well. I'll be keeping all of that together. And the VESA mount, of course, is what you would use to put it on the back of a display. And that was, by the way, KF's question, so I just fixed the link there. Gabriel is here. Stanko says everything is so far so good over there. Hope it stays that way. Everyone's thinking about you all. Civil is here. MSX Droid is here from the Netherlands. And Javid is here from Azerbaijan. Awesome. Everybody from all over the world we've got joining us today. And Javid is very interested in the thermals of this one. Yeah, I am too. I think this one has a fan on it. So this one will do better, I think, than the last Chuwi that we looked at, which was not very well cooled. By the way, the power supply is a 65-watt power supply. So I just need to make a couple of notes here. And power supply is 65 watts, and then we also have a VESA mount in the box. Just making notes as I go here. And before we boot it up, we're going to take it apart and see what's inside, because it is upgradable to a degree. And that's true of many of these mini PCs. And this one, they say, this is one of those things where we're going to check the marketing. They say this has 8 gigabytes of DDR4 on board in dual channel configuration. So we're going to want to make sure there are two sticks of RAM in this sucker. But looks pretty nice, right? Got your Ryzen stickers on there. Let everybody know you got some AMD love going on. The Brandtech is here from Chile. And Ed is here. And we've got Martin. And yes, actually, you're right, Roman. This would make a very cool RetroPie machine, wouldn't it? We should do a whole video on that too, maybe, right? This is Vega 10, yes. So they said in the specs, and if you go to the Amazon link, that'll take you to the product page. So this does have, let me double check. Yeah, AMD RX Vega 10 graphics. So I'm going to update my spec note here, because that looks like something I should mention. All right, let's keep digging into this a little bit. And On the Brown loves the mini PCs. Yeah, I get a lot of traffic on these. You know, it's funny, it's short-lived though. So the regular PC reviews do better over the long term. But this, in the short term, these do better from a viewership perspective. It's kind of funny. Roman likes the 2-color panda scheme here. This would not work well. Thank you for asking, Kyle. This would not work well as a Plex server because it does not support hardware transcoding, because these don't support that. So Plex likes Intel QuickSync, which this doesn't support. So that's why this would not work well for that. Yeah, and this is the other thing, right? The cost of components is getting so high that you could just buy one of these completed and you're good to go. KF says, show the ports. All right, we will show the ports. So we got lots of ports to show. So on the front, you have a USB 3, another USB 3, a USB Type-C, and a headphone jack. From what I'm reading in the specs, this supports video output in addition to data devices, but 4K 30 only out this one. Now, here's where it gets interesting. This has dual Ethernet, but it's more than just dual Ethernet. This is dual 2.5 gigabit Ethernet. 2.5 now, I think, is as inexpensive to make as the one is now, so you're going to see a lot more 2.5 gig ports. So that's why I was thinking if you were looking at maybe putting a little router together, this could do well for that because you have two separate network interfaces built right in. I don't know what the chipset is. It's probably Realtek, probably not Intel, but we'll see. And then you've got DisplayPort out and HDMI out. These do support 4K 60. The USB-C, though, only does 4K 30. And then we've got two more USB ports here. And then the top, because somebody was asking about the top, Roman was, the top of this is an exhaust for the fan. And I'm not sure if you can see this. Yeah, I think I can show you this. You'll notice that it's kind of, the fan doesn't fill up the whole thing. So the fan kind of goes just around this part here. But it is an air exhale, I believe. Or maybe it inhales through the top and pushes it out the back. We'll find out when we boot it up. The cooling, though, on first look, does appear to be a little more robust than I have recalled other Chuwis being. The price on this is about $400. There's an Amazon link in the description. And we'll see where it goes from there. And I'm not answering this question. You ask it every time. The set is what it is. And I think it's professional enough for my purposes. Kyle Golden is here. Welcome. Any 10 gig USB? No. Not on this one, I don't believe. But I will double check. Let's see. Ports, Wi-Fi. Let's see what the specs are in the USB. You know, it doesn't say what the port is. My guess is not, but who knows? So I will try to find out if it is, in fact, a 10 gig USB port. I doubt it, but I could be wrong. Partly because it's an older chipset, right? The 3700, so I'm thinking that's probably what it is. Is this with RDNA 2? It's Vega, what did I say? It's Vega 10. And Matthew says, I think he is asking if it 3MO. I'm not sure what you mean by that. 3.0. It is USB 3, yes, but not. So here's, so Matthew's asking this question on the Amazon chat. So USB 3 is definitely on here, no question. But there's different types of USB 3. So so they keep changing it. USB 3.2 Gen 1, or 3.2 Gen 1 is 5. And then 3.2 Gen 2 is 10. And I forgot what they've changed the vernacular to now. So it's hard to tell unless they label them, to be honest, these days. This is actually, with the coupon, it's $3.99 on Amazon's link there, if you apply the coupon. And Martin says that off-center fan gives me, yeah, it is, don't look at it. If you just keep it like this, you don't see the off-center fan. But yeah, it's indicative. I bet you they were making this like, well, it's close enough. It sort of fits. We're good. Michael wants to know about power consumption. We haven't gotten there yet, but I'm guessing it'll be, on par with other mini PCs. I'm guessing probably 7 or 8 watts at idle, maybe 6. And the power supply can go to 65 watts. And George just got an AMD board with Thunderbolt. Interesting. I don't know if they, is that a Thunderbolt board or is it USB 4? Now we are going to take it apart real quick and see what's inside of it so that we can get a sense as to what is upgradable. Now I know that the RAM is upgradable and the NVMe is upgradable, so the question is how easy is it to get at those things? And that we shall find out when I take it apart here. And I know I should have brought out my magnetic mat, and I'm going to regret not bringing it out, but we are already started here. There's only 4 screws, so it shouldn't be too hard to manage this here. So we'll just take out these screws real quick, and we'll see. Oops, the little rubber feet come right off on this sucker. We'll see what's inside. I'm going to put them in here so I don't lose them. And we'll see what is in here. And I'm guessing that we just kind of lift off the bottom here. Let's see. It's never quite apparent how to get into these things. So we're going to get out my little spudger. Just kind of stick it in the side here until it pops. See, there's something I can grab onto to kind of pull it out. I think I can get under that. Yeah, I think it's probably how I can get under there. It's definitely well put together. That ain't budging, so we're going to grab a little screwdriver, Phillips or straight head screwdriver here just to get some leverage. Kind of pull it out of this thing. There we go. Whoops. There goes one of the. Well, that's pretty easy to get at. So here is the inside. Move this out of the way here. And what we've got, very accessible. Ooh, that's not so good looking, is it? So there's always I always find some issue with their build quality, and here's one of them. There's no heat sink on the bottom of this for the NVMe. It looks like there might be room for a SATA drive, but there's no connection for that. But the NVMe is right in here. So I'm going to get a little closer shot here. I'm losing all these rubber feet. They keep popping off of it. And what I'm going to do here is just record a little bit of the insides here. So we'll do a little B-roll shot. So I am just going to get, this is the Larkbox X. And we're just going to do a little B-roll. All right, so I'm going to hit the record button. The good news is that everything is very accessible here. So you have your NVMe drive and this really crappy sticker that they put on it for thermal protection. And then you've got your 8 gigabytes of RAM. This can be upgraded to 32 gigabytes, they say. And that is it. It is pretty easy to get in there. Of course, the other side is where the processor is. So there you go. Now, there appears to be room for a SATA drive, but there's no connector on there. So I'm guessing this case design is probably one they would use for something else. And the RAM is DDR4. DDR4 2666. So let me make a note of that. There we go. And Edgar, thank you for the follow on Amazon. Yes, we will plug it in shortly, as soon as I put it all back together here. And I gotta make sure I find all my rubber feet. I didn't leave any inside of it. There's number 3. These things popped right off. And I've lost one. Oh, there it is already. So let's put this back together. And then we'll fire it up, see how it works. We'll run some benchmarks. We'll do our obligatory Windows updates. This is what happens, though, is that we have to do the updates. And so I like this drama of what's in the box and the unboxing. But then you've got to run all the updates. The good news, at least on the update front, is that this is running Windows 10 still, so we don't have to go through the rigmarole that we did on that HP stream the other week, where it took 8 hours of updates before we could actually use the computer. That will not hopefully happen here. And the other thing we're going to do is plug it into my 2.5 gigabit Ethernet so that we can see if these 2 gig Ethernet ports are the real deal or not. I'm going to test both of them. It's got Wi-Fi on board as well, by the way. And the Wi-Fi, I don't know what the Wi-Fi is. John, thank you for the follow on Amazon. Let's take a look here. I'll have to dig into that. Thank you for the super chat, Siraj. Much appreciated. I will definitely give you a shout out on our next weekly wrap up that we do in the next coming days. And the brand tech. So here's how I approach the Chuwi products. Is that every time I do a video about a Chuwi product, I like to warn the viewers to purchase at your own risk. They're not a bad brand. They've been around for a while. But if you have a problem, because they don't have a global support presence, you might have difficulty getting things fixed. So I generally don't recommend these as like a mission critical kind of thing. but it, you know, they tend to make decent hardware for the price point. And as MSX points out here, this does have a laptop. It's essentially a laptop processor, but it's not power constrained like a laptop processor would be. So these desktop units tend to run a little better than the laptop equivalent. And give me a second here, folks. I'm just going to get my power cord set up here. And we'll get going with some testing. And what I'm going to do is connect up my 4K display, because why not? And the other thing I want to check is whether or not this USB port has power delivery. So let's do that real quick and see. It does do video. So I'm just going to plug in a USB cord here and just see if it can power on. It does. OK, so it does support power out of the USB-C if you wanted to do that. But that power supply that I connected is not close to the wattage of what it comes with. So I think I'm going to play it safe in that regard. And I'm also going to connect it. I've got this cable running from my 2.5 gigabit or my 10 gig switch, which supports 2.5 gigs. So we're going to try some 2.5 gigabit love there. And then we're going to connect it to my 4K 60 display here. This would not be a computer that I would recommend as a 4K computing powerhouse. And I'll add the display that I have to the chat here too. But it is going to be able to do the basics. Like if you're doing Microsoft Word and stuff, I think it will do fine at that at 4K. Because they do perform pretty well, all things considered. And bear with me for a second here, folks. Just going to add, oops, that's the wrong size. Just going to add the monitor to the chat, because I know people like to look at the things that I am running. Here it is. OK, so let's return to the stream. And then for a keyboard, we are going to use my little Lenovo doohickey here, because it's very compact. Plug that in. And then we have some instructions and whatnot. But we don't need no instructions on this channel. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run it through my video system. And I'm always looking for trouble when I do this, but we're going to do it anyhow. So we're going to plug that into the video system, and then I'm going to run another cable to loop it back to the monitor. And I'm debating whether or not I want to run it that way. You know, I'm going to run it direct. And we'll just look at it on screen, because then I can switch resolutions. What happens is that my 4K video capture sometimes crashes, and then it takes down vMix with it. And it hasn't happened recently, but I had a crash that was not supposed to happen and did. So we're going to play it safe for now, but we'll explore a little bit here. OK, so we got this set up. Normally, I would just plug in my 1080p capture device, but I wanted to do the 4K. OK, so now we've got keyboard, display, power, Ethernet, and we're good to go. So let's fire this sucker up. First boot. Now, one thing I look for initially is whether or not the display's a little crooked. I could probably make my camera crooked to flatten it out. One of the things I look for initially is whether or not, let me fix this real quick. So it's going to be an issue when we do the video later. I'm looking for whether or not it has, that's better. OK, there we go. Yeah, OK, good. So yikes. That's not a good sign when you first boot it up. But one of the things that I look for, first of all, is whether or not it can come up successfully, besides whatever the heck it's doing now. But the other thing that I look for is that it has Windows set up properly. Because a lot of times these things have like some, in the past, not so much with these guys, but with a few of the other makers of mini PCs, I would have booted it up and it had like some pirated version of Windows running on it. And that hasn't happened to me recently, but it's happened in the past. All right, we got some comments here. Rube says, doesn't look like it's available in Germany. I do know they sell to Europe, so maybe it's just out right now. And Milan says, yep, doesn't have Thunderbolt, so that's important there. And Sheldon says, thank you for the honesty. Yeah, I'll also put that into the main video that we're doing too. Yes, I have it plugged into HDMI 1 here. This is not an encouraging first boot. So it could be that maybe the monitor and the computer don't like the cable. The cable looks fine. The port looks okay to me. So let's get another HDMI cable out. And we'll see if it's the cable. This might be a short stream, everybody. We'll see. And Siraj, thank you. Much appreciated, as I said earlier. I appreciate your help. And I'm glad you enjoy what we do here. Because I just kind of futz around with computers all day. And people seem to like that, so it works for me. All right, we're going to plug in this. And let's, yep, there we go. So it did not like the cable. And we're going to just go through the process here. Let me turn on the keyboard. And maybe my keyboard, no, it should be functional here. There it goes. All right, so we got to go through this process of setting up. The good news is that we're on Ethernet, and presumably we're on 2.5 gigabit Ethernet. So we will see. The fan is rather noisy on it. It's running. And we got Cortana. This looks like a really old version of Windows 10 also, by the way, because it's not filling the screen up, as you can see. And we have Cortana that we have to deal with now. The good news is I don't have sound on it right now, so you don't have to bear witness to that. Zam is wondering, do people use Google Docs more than Google Office? I will say that, you know, my teaching job that I just started, we use Microsoft Office exclusively at the university. And I had not been in the Microsoft ecosystem for a while, because I've been Google Docs for, you know, the better part of a decade or more. Actually, more than a decade. Ooh, it's going again. I'm beginning to not have faith in this computer already. All right, so I got to type in my name here. Yeah, this is like, it's not even asking me for a network connection. So bear with me here. I'm just going to answer its questions. And then I haven't logged into my, it hasn't even asked me to log into my Microsoft account, which leads me to think this might be a Pro edition of, oops. This might be a Pro edition of Windows 10. Because it didn't even prompt me for the Microsoft thing, but it could very well be that the network hasn't initialized yet, but let's see. But it does mean we're going to have a big Windows update to run on it. The brand text says, I like to watch your videos. It reminds me of my father when he reviewed computer products. Oh, I'm very sorry to hear that he passed away. But I'm glad there's some connection there. And did he do it for a living, or did he have like a YouTube channel? Did he work for a publication? Love to hear about what he did. I always like talking to people that have some connection to this. On the Amazon chat, Amazon customer says, so it's a compressed PC, can't be that good for its size. I just built a PC in November. From my experience, you definitely don't want an AMD CPU for Windows 10 or 11. I would disagree with that. I think the AMD CPUs are quite good, in many cases better than an Intel processor insofar as onboard graphics are concerned. But we'll see what develops here. Mark says that it won't ask for network if I'm on Ethernet, which I am. So that might be why it didn't ask, at least on this version. I think Windows 11 is going to require it. And yes, LibreOffice is a great alternative. Absolutely. Win32 is still on Office 97. You know, for many people, myself included, Office 97 was the pinnacle, right? And then they went to that ribbon design, and it was hard to figure out how to use it. And it could, yes, it could work as a headless server. Yep. Well, the good news is it's booted. And I'm a little nervous about this display glitchiness, but it could just be a driver thing, so we're going to have to just download a bunch of stuff. But we definitely changed the cable once already. Cyborg wants to know, does it have USB-C video out? It does. But the USB-C video output is limited to 4K 30. Mary is here. Hello there. And I got another super chat from Sheldon Angel. Thank you very much for your super chat contribution. Much appreciated. And Martin, just like me, has a free license. Yeah, I've got it from my university now too, so I can log in, and I have unlimited OneDrive. I can't use it for personal stuff, obviously, but I have unlimited OneDrive, which has been helpful for my class because they are submitting videos to me. So every assignment, you know, it's probably, oh, there it goes again, multiple gigabytes. Yeah, I'm concerned about the quality of this video connection. Let me take a look at the advanced graphics settings here. We are at 60 hertz. I'm going to switch it into like actual 60. Let's see if that makes a difference. All right. And oh, you know what? The Ethernet hasn't connected yet. So the port has a link, but the Ethernet doesn't seem to be detected here. So I'm going to try the other port and see if it grabs that. This thing is feeling pretty glitchy so far, folks. And I'm not getting link on the other connector here. Try this again. Let's see. It is not lighting up on the second. Oh, there it goes. Okay, now it's lit up. Let's see if we get a connection there. Okay, so now it's on the network. So I wonder if booting it that way was the issue. And I'm just going to check and see what speed we are at. So it did detect at 2.5 gigabits. So that's good. And you know what I'll do before we do anything else is I will grab the speed test app and just see how if it actually does handle that. So let me log into my test account here. But I have to say Microsoft has come a long way on catching up with Google insofar as how Outlook works. I think the whole Office 365 thing is really good right now. It really feels complete. All right, so now we're in, and let me do a search for the speed test app. We're also going to install the Xbox app in a minute too after we do our updates. And bear with me here, folks. I'll show you what I'm doing here. So why is that not showing up? I wonder if we have to do our update first before we do anything else. And I hate to burden you all with this because I know what happened the last time we went through all this, but there is a large swath of updates that have to be installed. And now it's telling me it's a problem with, oh, it's locked in October of, all right, so let's get the date and time fixed here first. All right, there we go. And now, there we go. So now we're on the right time. Okay, that's fixed. Yeah, it came out of the box like locked in October of 2021. So it may not be as behind as I thought it was. But now we can check for our updates and get that going. I'm not going to put Windows 11 on it today, just to get it going. And yeah, the fan is constantly running on this, for those who are curious about that. Now it says I'm up to date, but there's no way I'm up to date. Let me check that again. And now it lost its network connection. Let's retry it. Yeah, something feels odd on this machine, like it's losing connections to things. And it could just be I knocked the cable out. I don't know if the Ethernet isn't grabbing very well. But let's see what happens. Oh yeah, and it's got a good point that Roman made. I should maybe update the app here in of itself. So let me go over to downloads and updates. It looks like the Radeon software is looking to update. Yeah, here comes the swath of updates, everybody. I'm going to skip all this stuff here. Yeah, so the fan isn't noisy. It's audible. It sounds like a cheap fan that's running at like a constant velocity. It is like changing its speed. And what I'm going to do here is just run the necessary updates, and then we'll start doing our thing. So we'll get these done, and then we'll do the video drivers, and then we'll start testing some stuff. And let's see if the Windows Store has an update here. It doesn't look like it does. It should, though. But the good news is we've got the 2.5 gig Ethernet, so this should all download pretty quick now. And Alex Guy said, did I miss all the Windows updates? No, you came in just on time. But it looks like this one won't be as bad as the last one. So right now it's installing 21H1. And I think that is the current version, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. There might be some supplemental things. I'm not going to do the optional quality update. And Zed says the fan isn't too loud, can't hear it. And actually, the reason why you can't hear it is that I have a cardioid microphone. It's not bad. I mean, it's noisier than many mini PCs I've looked at, but it's also larger. And I think it exhausts out the top. And Martin says, yes, there's no, yeah, it doesn't look like there's much bloatware here at all, if any. I don't think there is any. Yeah, it looks pretty clean. And let's go in and see if there's a way that I can quickly update its driver. Yeah, here we go, current version. It says it's up to date. So it's on 22.1.1. There might be some beta driver out there, but it says as of today it's up to date. So we're good there. And it looks like the display now is stable, so that's an improvement over before. And Amazon customer makes a good point about right, so the AMD CPUs have had an issue with Windows 11, right? So we're not going to put Windows 11 on this one. And we'll let everything run through. We've got the cumulative update going in now, so we're going to let that run. And that'll bring us fully up to date. So this one wasn't as far behind as I thought. And we have not done the internet speed test yet. We will be doing that shortly. So once the updates are done, we're going to restart. We're going to wait for all of these things here to run through, and then we'll got 32 to go. But these don't look like they're all that important here. It's amazing how much garbage they install on your computers now, isn't it? I'm surprised that it doesn't show up. They hadn't. I'm crazy, but I know there's a Windows app called Speed Test. It's just not showing up. I wonder if I have to do the update here, because maybe it's the update that's preventing it. So what I'm waiting on right now is for it to just finish up this thing here. And while that's going, maybe I'll grab Google Chrome and get that installed while we're waiting. I use Chrome just because we test it. Okay, so let's download Chrome. Download Chrome. Yeah, you can tell it's definitely getting a little bogged down right now because it's doing all these updates. So I'm going to let that finish. We'll get Chrome installed on the reboot. And yeah, Speed Test by Ookla is what we're looking for. It just doesn't seem to be showing up in the store, but I think it's because of these Windows updates. So once it finishes installing this big update here, which it's going to take a few minutes, it looks like, we'll dig into that. Let's see where we're at on performance. Yeah, so let that run through. That's taking up a lot of resources right now. Alex guy's wondering if I've been playing Elden Ring or no, I haven't been playing either one of those. Are those on Game Pass? I'm like, right now at this point, if it's not on Game Pass, I don't usually get to it. I'm getting lazy in my old age. I just don't have the time. I wish I had more time to play some of these games. Because my video game playing now is with my kids on the Switch. So we've been playing through Pokemon Snap. That's what we've been playing recently. So that's been fun for the kids. That game is more fun than I thought it would be, Pokemon Snap. And there's another Pokemon game also that I want to get for them, that open world one. And Cyborg is curious about the wattage used. Yeah, I unfortunately, I forgot to plug it into my kilowatt when I got going, so I will plug it in after this reboot. We'll plug it in and be able to get the reading on there. And Game Pass, it is absolutely, I love Game Pass. Because I have an Xbox Series X upstairs that I bought last year. So it's fun to just kind of go through it and explore. I've been doing a lot of the streaming on it also, because then you don't have to wait for the installation. You can just run it. And I guess Flight Simulator is going to be available in the cloud. So that's cool. All right, here we go. I wonder if I should call this the update show, where we just watch a computer update for 4 hours. All right, we're almost there, 100%. So I'm going to shut down and update, and then I will plug in the kilowatt, and we'll get a sense of the power readings on this sucker. My guess is it'll never get close to the full power of it. And Roman played the original on Nintendo 64. And yeah, it's apparently like very much a, captured the spirit of that original game. And my daughter loves it. Both of my daughters do, actually. We have a little dispute in the evening as to who gets to play and whose turn it is. And Jolty says, nothing worse than an update that breaks things. Trust me on that one. I had a horrible problem with my PC upstairs. Something happened to it in the course of updating Windows, and everything went down. Like it just froze up on me. And this was like a super stable computer. I had all this stuff installed on it. And it almost brought me back to the old days in the 90s where you really had to like wipe out your computer once a year to get the performance back. That's what happened upstairs. So I just installed it from scratch. I ripped out everything. So I'm like on a vanilla installation of Windows 11 upstairs, just because I wanted to get a feel for Windows 11 as a consumer. So I've been running 11 upstairs and then 10 everywhere else. Like my streaming computer is not yet, I'm not going to put 11 on here until vMix says it's okay. Yeah, here we go. The update show will be me with a mic right up against the grill, against the fan grill for some ASMR. That'd be great. Paul's asking if I've used 9. Yes, I have actually in the past. You know, I haven't used it as much because the apps that we install are not on it. So yes, it does Chrome. It does Steam, but it only does the first part of Steam, so you still have to go through the whole rigmarole with it. So I have used it. What I've always been looking for was something that could do all the apps that we install, right? And I've yet to find that. But we're doing a little less these days. You know, I install Steam. I've got my external hard drive here with all of my Steam games on it and 3D Mark. So this little drive has all of the stuff that we typically run. So I just point Steam at this and get it going. And Martin doesn't even know what a Chrome installation looks like, thanks to Nanite. Maybe I should just use that for Chrome, right? Have they updated the apps that it installs? Let me look. I haven't looked at it in a while. They have like a commercial version, but it's super expensive. Let me see how it looks here. Yeah, so we would do Chrome, but I don't use any of this stuff. And let's see, I don't do. I'm just thinking about the things that we use for testing. Yeah, so generally it doesn't install really anything that, I guess the .NET framework would be useful. That's new, at least new since I've looked at it. 7-zip, yeah, might be a couple things that make sense. You get LibreOffice on there too, huh? That's pretty cool. Yeah, so what this does, you check off the apps that you want, and then you run the software, and it just installs everything every time. And they have a commercial version where you can customize it for the types of, for the things that you want to use. It's called Nanite Pro, but it is super expensive, if I remember correctly. It does app updates for you. I mean, it's really, from an IT perspective, I could see this being really useful. So let's say I had 10 machines. Well, that's not bad, $10 a month. I guess if you're making use of it, it could really be useful. Because I think you can customize what things it installs. But the trick for us is that we're constantly getting computers in and then sending them back out again, right? So, all right, here we go. Still installing. We're almost there. I was probably slowing it down. It does feel like it's leveled out here. I'm not getting those video glitches anymore. So either it was an issue with it warming up, or perhaps it was just the driver getting configured when it booted up for the first time. And Jolt Dude uses Patch My PC. That's one I haven't heard of before. I'll have to check that out. And George prefers 7-zip to WinRAR. Yeah, 7-zip is good, and it's open source, if I'm not mistaken, right? So Corey's using Edge because it's a little more optimized. The reason why I use Chrome for testing is that we've been running Chrome for all of our testing from the beginning of time. So for the standpoint of trying to keep everything the same, we do our browser bench tests in Chrome just because that's what we've been using everywhere. The other reason is that we're also getting in a lot of Chromebooks. So to be able to compare how a Chromebook works to a Windows computer, we run Chrome on both for that comparative. For my personal browsing use, I've been using Brave. And on the Mac, Brave, especially the ARM Mac, Brave works really, really well. So I've been very pleased with Brave on the Mac. And we got some more questions here. I think Seaplane asked something that people are answering here. Giac thinks that we're going to be, yeah, everything's going to be a terminal thing. Yeah, I think it's getting back to that point, isn't it? Especially now that you can play games as a terminal. So like, you know, some of the best use cases for these mini PCs is game streaming terminals, right? But also everything else. And even the web, you might argue, is a terminal-based thing. I mean, there's some local code being executed, right? But not extensive code. And Cyborg says the Brave browser, yeah, they've been doing pretty well. They're getting a lot of users. I get about, you know, through that Brave Rewards program, or the Brave Creator thing, I'm getting about 25 or 30 bucks a month from people that use Brave, the Brave browser, because those ads that you view, part of the revenue goes to people that you've designated in the browser to support. And I don't know who the people are that are doing it, because I would love to thank the people that have selected me, but I can't, I have no way of knowing who they are. And Joltu says somebody made a front end for 7-zip. Yeah, I've always liked WinZip. That was my favorite zip. I guess it's still out there, but I just use 7-zip for the most part. Actually, a lot of it I use the internal stuff. So on the Mac, zip is built right in. You just right-click. And I think the PC has that too. You can just unzip it right within the OS. Chris Allegretta is here. He just got the PN51 to check out. Seems to be a lot of I/O latency. I'm not sure if it's his old SSD or maybe an old kernel. So the PN51 is what, another mini PC? Let's see. Yes, the Asus PN50. I think I looked at that one, didn't I? Oh, I haven't looked at that one. I think I looked at the older one. All right, we're just going to let this finish updating. We're at 21%. So as soon as it's done installing here, we can finish it up. And then I'll put in the kilowatt. Paul says Opera has a free VPN that you can use. And Mark is still a fan of WinRAR. What's cool is all these compression apps have been around for so long, right? And Roman likes File Roller. That's one I haven't played with. And Brian says, be honest, has anyone actually ever paid for WinZip? No, but remember that front screen would just keep going longer and longer before it would let you close it out, right? And Jolt Dude prefers Vivaldi versus Brave. And I think Vivaldi is a Tor browser, if I'm not mistaken, right? And Bryant says, I think Edge is actually faster on Linux than Chrome. I believe that. Because they probably, you know, carved out all the Google home phoning stuff. And Underground says, those older guys know that all the things Microsoft, yeah, everyone's been spying on us for years. Second, everything got connected to the network. All of that stuff has been going back to the mothership for sure. Yeah, Roman, I remember there was an issue with the Brave founder, right? I can't remember all that went down there. But I think, didn't people like threaten to walk out or something? I can't remember how that whole thing transpired. And George, looking at all the different options, yeah, they're all Chromium based, right? They're all basing it off of that code base. All right, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to just do the restart here and see if that speeds up the updating process. So let's see what happens. So let's do update and restart. And Mark makes a good point here, which is that the only, exactly, is this complete air gap. Or boot up your Apple II and keep the modem off. Because, you know, it used to be that there was a distinction between being on, they used to call it online because you were online. Now you're connected all the time. So it's almost not even worth calling it online anymore because it implies that there's an off to it, which there isn't. Because as long as you're connected to that network, you are connected to the world, right? The Brown fires up Netscape Navigator every once in a while. I used to, when I was in college, my freshman year, they had a direct internet connection in the computer center. So we used to have to walk across campus, and we had NCSA Mosaic, the original web browser. And that was a big deal. I used to browse Google, Yahoo was my homepage of choice back then. That's right, Roman. So it was when he was at Mozilla that he had made those donations. That's right. I remember that now. I gotta look into that, what happened since that point. Because I know that he was under some pressure at Brave over that. Joltude says, NCSA Mosaic. Yeah, so that was the first browser. It was called Mosaic. Apparently it wasn't the first, according to Wikipedia. It was one of the first. It was instrumental in popularizing the World Wide Web. And that's the one I remembered using. And it was slower than you know what. Even on like a direct connection. It would crash all the time. It was not very reliable. And then Netscape was the first commercial browser. And so when Netscape came out, that's when things started to really feel like this could be something. And Michael was talking about having that. PSI Borg uses Odroid N2 to remote into his main PC to game. So you actually do your on the net. Yeah, so I do a little bit of in-home game streaming, but lately because of Game Pass, I don't do as much. Marvin White is here, is following, I should say, on Amazon, so thank you for that. And William remembers the AOL commercials. And Chris says, I remember thinking the other day about being online meant having to sit at a desk and connecting your modem to check in. Yeah. Well, I remember I had I got a PowerBook in like 1994, I think is when I got it. And I had a modem on it. And so I would take it around to different parts of the house. I could sit on my couch with it, but I'd have to plug it into the telephone line to get it online. And for a while, I was doing a lot of BBSing and internet at the same time, and the internet kind of just took over, right? And Jolt Dude, his first experience was NCSA Mosaic on a digital equipment workstation. That's old school right there. Yeah, we had a DEC VAX in the computer center. So we all logged into that over dial-up on the campus telephone network for email and stuff. And my email address initially was super long. It was like, I mean, you have to like write it down and hand it to somebody. And then they slowly got everything put together. The funny thing though is that now that I'm working at my alma mater, my email address today is the same email they gave me back in 1996 or so. So same thing. It's really, really fun. James Kinney, thank you for the follow on Amazon. We're just waiting for some updates to finish up here so we can actually see what this thing's all about. The good news is it's working better than when it did when I first booted it up. So that's an improvement there. And my Xbox controller kind of matches it too. Isn't that cool? And BFIN user, yes, Gopher. So I did a whole video on text-based internet involving a Raspberry Pi. If you look on my channel for 90s internet, you can see what the internet was like when I first arrived at school in 1994. And yeah, that was exciting because when Netscape had a new version, it was a big deal, wasn't it? Brian is wondering, do I remember the first website I visited? His was a Tiny Toon Adventure fan page. You know, I don't. I do remember the first FTP site I visited, oddly enough. It was a NASA FTP site, and I thought it was amazing that I could connect to NASA. Like, it was something neat about the ability to legally connect your computer to NASA. So that's a memory that I have. Like when it would connect and you type in anonymous, because it would allow anonymous connections, and it would just say connected. What would you like? Take any file you want. It's like, whoa, it's amazing. Martin's first browser was Chameleon Web Surfer. And Roman makes a point, too, that if we were on a spinning drive, it would take longer. Absolutely. And this is an NVMe drive, so this would be slower than it would be on eMMC. So that, or it would have been slower on eMMC. George makes the point that Brave has a built-in Tor browser, which it does, which is very, very useful. And Jolt Dude was using Gopher and Lynx. Yeah, if you check out my 90s internet video, I installed all of that stuff on a Raspberry Pi. It was actually kind of fun. It was neat. And John's wondering if I could do a show on Matter. I will as soon as there's something I can do with it. Because right now I don't think there's anything that I own that supports it. So that's what I've been kind of waiting on, be able to demo it. Matter is a standard for IoT devices, if I'm not mistaken. Michael was wondering, was I into IRC stuff? I was not heavily into it, but I recall visiting. So after I graduated college, a friend of mine who was a year behind me was still on campus for a summer section. So I went to visit him just to grab something to eat. And it was always fun to go up to school when there was nobody there. And so we went up there, and he was staying on campus, and his roommate for the summer was like really into IRC, and he was using it to download movies. And when I say like this guy was into it, that's all he did, was just constantly like looking for media. And I remember him having those cylinders of CDs, like he had probably 12 of them, and just filled with media. Like he wasn't watching any movies. For him, it was the acquisition. And he kept burning stuff to CD. It was crazy. But IRC was pretty wild. And C-Plane remembers connecting to my BBS. Yeah, I took that down. I was having some trouble keeping it going. But I had set up a BBS. And now there's a lot of classic computers connected to the internet for BBSing. And Chris remembers, yeah, you know, this is all bringing back memories now. FTP-CD-ROM.com was like a CD-ROM connected to the internet with a bunch of shareware on it. That was good stuff. Mark's, yep, good old IRC stuff there. And Chris likes the styling on the box. Yeah, the dual NICs I like here. I think this is, there's some value to that. The question, I guess, is, you know, is the hardware reliable enough to work in that regard? I guess it would be, especially if you have full control over the OS you're putting on it. MSX still has an MIRC license. And Roman says, don't look inside the box. And Corey remembers the analog dial-up sound. Yeah, you know, it changed over the years depending on the speed you were connecting at. The 56K had that awesome like sound where it would fade up like that. It was cool. There's a book, if you're into telephones, there's a book called Exploding the Phone. And if you're into like stories about hackers and that sort of thing, this book is amazing because it talks about how people discovered how the telephone network, because it was mechanical in how it operated, had a flaw in it that would allow anyone to make free calls if they had this little whistle they could blow and a special tone generator. And this whole hacker space happened. And as people discovered the technology on their own, they were finding each other inside of phone networks all over the world. It was really amazing. It was a fascinating book called Exploding the Phone. If you click my Amazon link, you'll find it. And Captain Crunch is prominently featured in that book, actually, because it was that whistle that would come in a Captain Crunch cereal box was at a 2600 hertz tone that would trip the phone network. And Two Cows was another popular site. They now have a very big business. They have a domain registry, web hosting. They also own Ting, the cellular company. They've turned into a big company. And Joe used to connect to online BBSs with his Atari 800. I've got one of those in my back room, actually. I got to boot it up one of these days. And George is correct. There's still FTP sites out there, absolutely. And Cyborg says, I am probably 1 year older than him. I am 45. And Mark, I didn't realize this was a FidoNet hub back in the day. Yeah, I had a FidoNet BBS. I was 1:141.111. I briefly got back on the FidoNet when I had my Synchronet BBS. Now, Brian Hendricks had a TI-99 4A with cassette tape. That was actually the very first computer that I used. I took a computer class between kindergarten and first grade. It was like a summer camp thing, and we did logo and sprites on the TI-99s. That was a fun computer, at least for me, because that was really like the first experience I had with a computer. I could barely read, but I could program the turtle in that. Michael says, I feel old now. Yeah, time flies. Time flies. In some ways, it was better before all these computers were connected to the internet. But that book, Exploding the Phone, it's so fascinating. If you're into this kind of stuff, it was amazing. All right, so I think I can get back into this thing now. Now let's see what Windows looks like after we get back in here. But I really enjoyed the BBS scene. It was what was neat about BBSing was that it was not the world, right? Like it was a very minimally adopted communications medium. It was a very different communications medium than anything else that was out there. And most people were not on it. So to be on it was like almost a secret world, and you could explore all sorts of neat stuff. And that's how the internet felt in the early days too. And then they let in everybody from AOL and it all went to hell. Remember that? It was a big debate over should AOL allow their users on the internet. I remember that being a debate. And that's true. BBSs were more of a club. All right, I think this looks like we've got a lot of updates here. So I think that speed test app now should be accessible to us. Yep, there it is. So I'm just going to grab this real quick. And Amda Brown had a Radio Shack TRS-80. And actually, the first BBS that I called up was run on a TRS-80 with a 10 megabyte hard drive attached to it. This guy was like really into the TRS-80. That was his thing. And this was in like the early 90s when people were still using 8-bit computers to a large degree. Like they were still out there. Because for a lot of people, like 8-bit computers were fine, right? We didn't need more than that. Because if you were mostly living in a text-based environment, right, you didn't need more. All right, we're going to run a speed test here, and I'm going to record this for B-roll. So let's see how it does. And I'm going to test the other adapter. Well, that's not good. Yeah, something's not right here. This should be in the thousands, not 172. Well, that's bizarre. I wonder if I've got a router. I have to go mess around with my setup again. That should not be. The only thing I can think of is that maybe it's still downloading updates. Let me check something here. Update and security. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be downloading anything right now. I wonder if I've got a misconfiguration on my switch. because it should definitely be doing more than that. But even the upload wasn't good either, right? Because it should have been, let's let this finish again. I'll try the other port and see what happens there. Yeah, I should be doing a little better than that. If it's indeed, I mean, we're getting more than a gig, but it should be doing more than that. So let me try the other port and see if that does anything different. So we'll unplug it from here. Let's wait for the connection. Yeah, it could be the network drivers are out of date. And that's, by the way, here's another good book recommendation, is Ghost in the Wires. Okay, now I got to say this. I'm not going to be offending anybody, but Brian Hendricks on Amazon says you have to call the TRS-80 the Trash 80. And that was among all the rivalries of the old 8-bit computing days, right? You had the Apple versus Commodore people, and then you had the TRS-80 stuff. Yeah, this is weird. I don't know why we're seeing this. I think my gut is that I've got some issue on my switch setup here that's impacting this. But I don't think so, because I plug into this switch all the time and I don't see this kind of performance out of it. That is messed up. And the Wi-Fi is definitely not connected. At least I don't think we're on the Wi-Fi. No, we're on Ethernet. Oh, it just lost the network connection. Yeah, there might be something afoot with this Ethernet. So let me dive through it here. It is connecting at 2.5 gigabits, so it's negotiating the speed properly. Wi-Fi is disconnected. Let me try a different server here and see if there might be an issue with that. So let me connect to the CEN here. Yeah, something just ain't right here, folks. Because the network adapter is definitely running at the right speed there. So let me dig into. And 2.5 gig Ethernet is difficult because my main switch doesn't support it directly. So I connect in through these other ones. But I have a few things up my sleeve that I can try to troubleshoot with. But what I want to do is go into the device manager and see if maybe there's some driver issue with the network. So it's using an Intel controller. So you know what I might do? And what's concerning me here is that it's given it a, you can't really see it here on the screen, but it's got like a 3 next to it, meaning that it's added this now 3 times. And then there's been 2 other instances of it. Let me take a look here and see L225-V. See if there's a driver on Intel's website for it. Recommended consumer price, $2.71. And it's discontinued. Let's see what they have for downloads here. If there's a driver. A network adapter driver for Windows 10. And it's a complete driver pack. This installs 27.0 of the Intel Ethernet adapter complete driver pack. So let's just grab that. It's 715 megabytes, and it would be downloading quicker if we didn't have this issue here. it says if you're using a OEM branded server or appliance, contact your OEM for a software driver version that is compatible. Let's see what we can find here. I doubt Chuwi is on the list, but yep, not seeing them on the list here. But I wonder if maybe just the regular driver is more efficient here. Network, yeah, let's do that. So let's see how big that file is. Now, Windows driver 27. So we have a 64-bit machine here, so we'll do that. Let me do this one. Yeah, but this should definitely be working better than it is. And again, it could very well be a configuration issue with my switch, but I doubt that. Because I've fixed all that a while ago. And let's see what happens here if it finds everything automatically. There's always something, right, everybody? And Sanko, yes, it should be 2.5 gigabits per second. But I think it's good that it does have an Intel controller on board, right? Because that, I think from the standpoint of Linux, that will ensure some decent compatibility. All right, so now let me take a look and see what the driver is on here. And it's funny how the driver version in Windows never aligns with what it just installed. All right, let's see what happens if I run that test again. I may reboot just for the heck of it. I always find it amazing, though, that you can send data to Boston in 6 milliseconds from here. Isn't that crazy? Yeah, we're still bombing out here. So I'm going to do a reboot. Because this is just not right. He says, with these comments now, remembering the Apple commercial, edit the auto-exec bat. No, the config sys. As in Linux, you just upgrade the kernel and the drivers come along with it. It's funny. I remember having to update that stuff. Let me do a quick reboot. Let's see if that might put us in a better place. And nope, the wireless is off. Because that was my first inclination, was that maybe we were on the wireless, but no. It is off. And Snako, yes, it is that the i225V, I believe, is what they have in there. So I did download that driver and installed it. So let's see what happens when it comes back up. And Gippel's wondering what, usually what we test with is Ubuntu, primarily because I can just boot it off the hard drive in a live CD version. And we've long debated on the channel about whether or not that's the best way to demo it. But I've settled on the fact that what I'm looking for is compatibility and whether or not you can get essentially a turnkey Linux kind of experience with it. And that's what I typically look for. All right, let's try the speed test again. So now we have the new driver installed. And we've rebooted. And it's same, more of the same. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is we're going to look for another way of making this connection. And I'm just looking on my switch here, because I don't think I've changed any of my network configuration. But I am going to check one thing before I go too nuts here, which is I'm going to go into my router real quick. I'm not going to show you this because it's on my other machine, but what I want to figure out, because this is going to impact everything else we do right now, is that if I can't get this network functioning correctly, all the things I want to test are going to be for naught, as they say. So I wanted to see if I neglected to set up something properly on the network side. And let me just double check here, network. Hang on one second here, folks. I'll go to my UC16. Right, so flow control is enabled on my switch, and I believe that is necessary for this to function properly. So the next thing I'm going to try here is I'm going to disconnect the Ethernet, and we're going to connect up to the Wi-Fi. So I'm curious to see exactly where the source of this problem is, and I've got a few other things that I can try short of that. The big challenge is that my network switch does not support 2.5 gigabit Ethernet connections. The one that I'm connected to does, which is connected in turn to the bigger switch. But what I want to do now is just get it on my Wi-Fi 6 and just see if that results in anything different happening. But I'm pretty sure the flow control being on is the proper setting. And what I might do actually is get my Ethernet network adapter for my Mac and plug that in and see if that does anything different. But before we do that, let's go back to the speed test app. Now this is with the Wi-Fi, so we should see this downstream speed be quicker now. Yeah, so now off of my Wi-Fi, we're doing, no, it's Wi-Fi, so it's doing what I would expect it to do. But it's not Wi-Fi 6 because that access point usually does much better than that. Yeah, the network connectivity here feels off to me. So it's about 300 in each direction. That Wi-Fi 6 access point can do more than that, so I suspect this is probably an just regular AC Wi-Fi. And I suppose I could look at the system settings on that in a second. And Roman had a good tip on getting to the... Oh, that's a good point. All right, give me a second here. Let me look at the speed test website and see if that makes any difference here. So let's try that. So I'm going to go to speedtest.net. And I'm going to run this now on here. Yeah, it's doing a little bit better, but not. I mean, it's better than it was, right? That's so weird, huh? And it's connecting to the same server. But we're not getting anywhere near the performance level that this thing should be delivering. So, I don't know. What I could do, we could try a little iPerf test. And I think I've got one built into my Unify router. What do they call that? Wi-Fi? Wi-Fi man? Yeah. Because I can connect right back to my switch locally with that. Oh, maybe not. I thought there was like a Windows application that I could use to test it with. Wi-Fi Man desktop. So let's troubleshoot this a little bit more and see if we can figure it out. Oh, great, I don't have my thing installed here. I guess I could set up like a Wi-Fi perf thing, but I have to get, it's gonna be a pain in the tuchus. Well, we're having some network problems, that's for sure. And I think you're right, Wi-Fi Man is only for network devices. Oh, Nightwalker is a good point. I installed the driver, but did Windows actually install it? And that is probably not the case. And actually, the other thing that Roman suggested was that we look at the optional updates in Windows Update. So driver updates. Oh, look at this, Intel Network. I should have done that first, Roman. I never listened to you. So we're going to install that. This is Intel Net. And it looks like it just downloaded that. All right, so I'm going to reboot again. Yeah, the problem I got to do here is I got to set it up on another PC that's on a similar speed connection. I guess I could run it on my Mac. But yeah, I'll tell you what, networking is getting really more complicated now in this age of multi-gigabit, because not everything supports the 2.5 gigs. So you can get a 2.5 gig switch, you connect to that, you uplink at 10, and it, you know, it's all squirrely how this stuff works. Okay. So let me go back in and we'll see if the driver got updated. Let's take a look here. Network adapters. Doesn't look like it updated the driver. Yeah, it's still on the same driver. So let's update the driver. Yeah, it says that's the best driver that they've got. So I'm just going to go browse it locally here and see if I can force it on there. Because the driver that it said it downloaded was the same one it had already. I don't even know where it put that driver. Let me go back and see where it installed that. Oops. Yes, this is current to February. Okay, so it is installing network drivers. There it goes. Yeah, it said it installed it, but the driver is not updating. because whenever I go back into the device manager, the driver it's reporting is still in June of 2021. But it is properly negotiating, but maybe it is the cable. Maybe I'll get another cable and see if that makes a difference. Let's try that. Because this cable works fine. I just used it the other day. But maybe I'll rule that one out with a different cable. So let me unplug here. It was negotiating at the right speed, but you never know. So I got to find a cable long enough to reach over there. This one might. But it was definitely connecting at the right speed. So we're going to swing this around here and see what we get. Okay, so now we're plugging in with another cable. And our Ethernet is reporting I'm going to turn the Wi-Fi off too, just to be safe. So we're going to switch that off. And Ethernet, we are connected at 2.5 gigabits. So that is proper. All right. I'm on a different port on the switch for the heck of it, right? Rule everything out. And it's still the same BS here. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try and plug it into just a gigabit connection and see if it performs the way we would expect there. So I'm going to disconnect from here. And I'm going to connect to my gigabit switch. And let's take a look and see if it is connecting properly. All right, so now we're at gigabit speed. And if it's a configuration problem, it's going to probably show up here. Yeah, it's still, even on gigabit, there's something not right here. This is gigabit. And that's, you know, the upload is close to what you would expect out of it. But remember, when we were running this on the 2.5 gig, it was still a gigabit behind. It was only about 1,500. So generally at 2.5 gigabit, 2 gigabits is usually what you get, minus the overhead. So that is interesting. So somebody said try a netstat minus E. No errors, no discards. And I think Michael's point here is probably the way to go, is maybe just redo all the drivers, just remove them. So let's see how, so I guess we would just remove these the hardware, right? I'm just going to uninstall it and reinstall it. So uninstall both devices here. And we'll scan for hardware changes. And just added them back in. That driver just is not updating. Yeah, this is definitely not correct. let me try. I'm just going to run it on my Mac here. You can't see me run it, but I'm just curious if I might have a bigger problem that I'm not aware of. Let's see. So on my Mac, connected to Ethernet, yeah, I'm getting what I expect on that. On the same switch. So there's definitely something going on inside of here that is the cause of this. So I'm going to uninstall these again. Yeah, it's weird. It's like refusing to install the current drivers on it, too. Yeah, but we've done 2 different cables now. So I can try to swap that out. Oh, I need to check remove driver software. Okay, so let me try that again. Let's do, so right now I have them uninstalled. All right, so now I just did the drivers through this and it redetected the hardware. And we're still, if I'm not mistaken, yep, still on. Okay, so let's do what Roman suggested here. So we're going to go to uninstall. So I don't have an option to uninstall. Okay, delete the driver software. Okay, let's do that. Get rid of it that way. Uninstall device, delete the software driver, uninstall. Okay, so now scan for hardware changes. And that's going to force it to yeah, drivers. Well, driver's different. It's got an older date now. Let's see if that makes any difference. I don't know where it's picking these dates out from, but. All right, so remember, we're still on gigabit. And it's a little better than it was, but nowhere near where it should be. But maybe we do what was suggested, that we pop into Linux and just see if it has the same behavioral issues there. All right, so that's not working. So we need to go, I'm going to try this driver installation again. And I don't know where it's installing this stuff. I think it's putting it into a temporary directory. So I might try to extract the driver manually. So the driver date was January before. Now it is, yeah, so this brings back that June driver. So let's try it one more time here and see if there's any difference. This is getting frustrating. Yeah, it's still dogging here, no matter which switch we plug it into. Okay, so what is there left to try? We may as well do the Linux thing and give that a shot. So where did my Linux drive go? Here it is. And this will be a good excuse to get into the BIOS and see how that goes. And what I'm also going to do in the interim is replug this in to the multi-gigabit connection. But the networking definitely feels like something's not right here. See, part of the problem is that whenever I do something live is when stuff stops working. It's just kind of par for the course on this thing. And Roman had another comment here. And what's weird is that the driver that we were looking at supposedly was newer, was from February, but I don't know if the signing date is whatever it was. All right, so now we're going to reboot this sucker. And if you're curious about the BIOS, here's your opportunity to see what's in the BIOS. And Richard, thank you for checking the page there. They have no driver page. Yeah, I've got a 2.5 gig adapter upstairs, so we might try that also. And now it's gone green on me here. I'm not trying to get into the BIOS. I'm assuming delete does it, but we'll find out. Mark Bollinger, thank you for the super chat. Yeah, this might be another two-parter, everybody. Because now, like, my screen is green. It should be blue. There it goes. Yeah, I'm not getting a lot of confidence on this thing. All right, so here's the network stack configuration in the BIOS. Oh, yeah. All right, IP4 PXE support. This is boot support. Yeah, I don't want to do that. So this is all like network boot up stuff. Is there an onboard? See, this is where I get, oh, wait a second. Here's some, so you know what's interesting is that it's got the 3 next to it here also. And all it's saying is that it's connected. So I don't have any configuration options there. You can set VLAN stuff on here. And you got to be really careful when they give you so many options because you can really mess stuff up in here. So I'm not going to do anything here just yet. I'm just seeing if there's anything that might be of interest. All right, so let me go do a boot override to our Linux thing here and see what we get. But Mark, again, thank you for the super chat. I can't remember if I thanked you or not, but we'll see if Linux has the same issue here. I have a feeling it probably will, as you stated, but you never know. So we'll see what happens when it comes back up here. Now the fan is really working. And are we going to have some video here or what? What do you think? There it goes. All right, Linux. And we're just going to go and try Ubuntu. I don't expect any compatibility issues here because we have Intel hardware inside. The fact that it has Intel NICs is actually a good thing, generally. All right, so now I'm just going to turn on the display scaling because I can't see a thing. I'm getting blind in my old age here. So let me go over to display settings, and we're going to scale this to 200%. Yeah, okay, much better. And does audio work? I believe it does. Wi-Fi works. We're not going to connect to Wi-Fi, but Wi-Fi looks like it works. Bluetooth works. Good. All right, so that's good. I'm going to just actually record a little B-roll here while we're sitting here. I do need to verify that the audio works on this, though. So let me grab. Do I have a headphone connector back here? I do, I believe. I'll just plug into the headphones on the. I always like to make sure that the audio works on this stuff. So let's take a listen, make sure we've got some audio. You won't be able to hear it, but I will. I don't have any speakers hooked up to this thing, so that's why. Oh. Having trouble finding the site. So I've got the Ethernet connected, and it's showing connected, but it doesn't seem to be detected. Let's try the other adapter here. I found when we first set this up on Windows that it also wasn't getting a connection out of the gate. I bet you this Ethernet is problematic. I may have to reach out to them and say, hey, guys and gals, something's not right here. Yeah. It didn't detect the Ethernet. And that is really surprising given that it's got Intel adapters inside. All I get for network options here is a VPN. Ooh, Richard's got a good observation there. And my experience with Linux, now I'm not as seasoned with Linux as some of you in the chat are, but it's kind of surprising that it did not pick up the Intel NICs. And I'm not sure how we can find it. Let me go over to the hardware thing. And it looks like the consensus is kind of brewing around it could be that. And this is why when I say to people, like, there's always this notion of buy at your own risk with these. So let me get it on the Wi-Fi. I don't know if there's an update or something for it. The version of Linux that we are running is Ubuntu 21.10. So Roman has always been very good at tweeting at me when it's time to get my Linux installation updated. And yeah, we're just not seeing the network on here. So there's some consensus brewing that perhaps we have a faulty network adapter. So the next thing I want to check is to the point made earlier about my 2.5 gigabit Ethernet. Brian does make the point that flaky Ethernet would probably show errors, and mine showed none. That is correct, although we did have it drop connection a couple of times and then reconnect. So what I'm going to do here, because this is definitely not finding it, the network adapter does have a link. It is lit up in the back. But what I think I'm going to do real quick here is let's boot back into Windows. And I'm going to go upstairs and get my 2.5 gig Ethernet adapter, as was suggested earlier, and see if that might work better. But this is definitely turning into another one of these projects that we endeavor upon. So let me go grab that real quick. And we'll see where we are at with this. So I've got one of these pluggable adapters. It's 2.5 gigs. Works fine. Was using it on my Mac upstairs in my secondary perch. I have multiple perches around my home. All right, so let me plug. Well, first thing we're going to do, we're just going to pop back into this and see if it just magically started working again. Rowan says it's called Chuwi. It chews up your network card. All right, so let's take a look. So this network device, Brian, as I was looking on the Intel specs, is actually an older device that is no longer being sold by Intel. But let's see what happens now that I've got my adapter plugged in here. Okay, so we're good to go. So we're going to plug in my little pluggable thing here and wait for the Ethernet to connect. We do not have link yet. Boy, this is really flaky, huh? Maybe it just doesn't like network adapters. Plug it back in. We're not even getting a link on this one. So let me try a different USB port. Had it in the USB-C, but maybe it doesn't like that. So let's plug it into regular USB. Hope we didn't zap my adapter. And Brian says he's a senior Linux engineer, so all of my devices are cloud-based. Yeah, that's probably the better way to go versus all this troubleshooting. Yeah, this thing's not even getting detected now. Just make sure it still works. I had one of these things go on me, so I don't know if it just got zapped by the thing there. No, it's working still. Okay, so I just plugged it into my Mac, and it's still blinking. All right, so let's try this. And what I'm going to do, too, is reboot it again and see. I think there's something fundamentally wrong with this, or there's maybe like some big chipset driver that needs to get updated. But that wouldn't explain the issues we had on the Linux side. So what I might do is try this on Linux next and see if it works there. And I think Richard makes a good point here also. If it works well enough, most people wouldn't notice it. But yeah, something just is, because when you look at some of the issues we had with the video dropping out, we had the network going in and out a few times. The keyboard hasn't, to my knowledge, but it's hard to say because we don't know. Or I could just try to like uninstall it from scratch and see if that might have any impact. But this NIC is not getting detected. Okay, so this is having problems. Update driver. Windows unable to install your USB LAN. Windows cannot find drivers, which is unusual because this doesn't typically need those drivers. Let's see, it's not seeming to find it here. All right, so let me go over to the Pluggable website and see if we can grab drivers from there. So even though our connection is slow, I can at least get the drivers for this. All right, so this is their, I don't think they have drivers for this, because usually it's all built into Windows. Okay, so this is the newer version. This is the okay, it's the same one, it just looks different. So Windows 10. But I've never had this adapter need drivers to be installed first, which is weird. But herein you can see life with a mini PC. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Oh, and John said, don't confuse the i225V with the i225LM. So maybe I'll go back and see which one we have. So this one, as far as, it says V here. And the driver that I downloaded was like the Intel all-in-one USB, or Intel all-in-one Ethernet adapter driver thingy. All right, let's go and see. It says it's complete. I'll click Finish. I did get one comment about jumbo frames, and that might be an issue there. So let's take a look at that real quick, and then we'll try the other adapter. Yeah, because it is connecting at 2.5 gigabits. All right, I'm going to turn jumbo packets on. Try this load first. All right, so let's give that a shot real quick. So it's resetting its connection. It's reconnected. All right, so this is with jumbo frames set to the first option, negative. All right, so let's set jumbo frame, and I think I'm connected to this one. Set it to the larger one here. And just in case I'm on this one also, I'm just going to do that. Let's see what we get here. Okay. One more go. I'm running out of time, so we'll see where we end up here. Yep, still no go. And jumbo frames, I think, I only have an option to have them on or off on the switch. So I think we're okay there. But let me grab this out of here, and let's plug it into this adapter, which now has its drivers installed. So there we go. So now we're connected. All right, so now we're on the USB adapter. We have link. I am waiting for, okay, so now we've got that connected. And let's go over to speed test, and let's run another one here and see how we do. So this is on the USB now. That's what we should be getting. See that? So it's definitely not the switch. It's probably something related to the network driver, because that's what we should be seeing right now. See that? And we're not getting that on the internal NIC. Roman says, you know, I don't know the answer to that question. It's probably soldered on, but I am not sure. So yeah, this is just bizarre, right? The fact that it's not getting detected in Linux, and we've got this other issue. I almost wonder if there's a hardware firmware issue with this NIC. And I'm not sure how I would resolve that. But that seems to me like there's something in the hardware here. Again, same cable, same port on the switch. The USB one works fine. These alleged 2.5 gigabit adapters built into this thing, no joy. And that's a key feature. So we'll have to see where we go. Brian is on Amazon, and he's wondering, where am I seeing Richard's comments? So where I am seeing those comments are on the YouTube channel. So I simulcast on Amazon and YouTube. So that's why you see both there at the same time. All right, so that I might at least have something to demo with this, what I am going to do real quick is grab Steam, and we're going to run a quick benchmark and see how it does on that. But obviously, we're having some significant issues with the networking on this thing. And I have to resolve that before I can shoot the review. So there goes tomorrow's shoot. My goal for this was to be like 3/4 of the way through all the testing, so I'd have something to shoot tomorrow. So this teaching thing, I teach on Tuesdays, and it's an hour drive to get to the school. So I have like the morning, and then that's it. If I don't have something ready to shoot, and Monday I do the wrap up. So I have a video going up tonight at least for something I shot yesterday. All right, so what I'm going to do here is we're going to run the 3D Mark benchmark on this sucker and just see how it compares. Because now I'm curious, like, what else doesn't work here? But isn't that crazy with the network adapter? And you know what I'm wondering too? Let's take a look. I'm just going to check my overall internet output level here, because part of me wonders if maybe this thing is like phoning home with some funky stuff, but it looks like it's not. One of the good problems that you have with a connection as fast as mine is that it's very easy to transmit a large volume of data very quickly. So I have 3 gigabits upstream, as you saw. All right, let me go over to okay. So I'm going to go and install my drive here. And what I'm going to do is just grab, add this to my Steam library folder here. So I've got my E drive, or D drive, and Steam games. There we go. All right, so now, if I go to 3D Mark, I mean, it feels pretty zippy, right? I mean, it doesn't feel bad. It's just the fact that its network adapters don't seem to work correctly, which is a problem. Because I could see somebody getting this thing to use as a router or try to make use of its very quick upstream speeds and then, you know, fall flat. All right, so we'll let that finish up there. And Butthead says, does it have USB-C to Ethernet just in case? It doesn't, but I do. So I've got this thing here that worked just fine. And yeah, I'll give you 2 that don't work. Very true, very true. All right, who else has got comments here? Yeah, I've had mixed results with their stuff. I mean, they're not bad computers, you know. I just think there's something inherently wrong with this Ethernet. So I'm going to write to them and see if there's maybe something going on. It could be that they got, you know, what I found with these mini PCs, and you're going to see this now all over Amazon and other places. You're going to see, and I've been getting emails from these mini PC manufacturers. Everybody's got 3000 series Ryzen processors going into these mini PCs right now. They're everywhere. And I think what's happening is that these chips are just getting unloaded in the marketplace. There's a big commodity marketplace for out-of-date chips. So if you're Chuwi, you're a commodity PC maker, you buy the parts that you can get dirt cheap and assemble a computer around them. So if we look at the Ethernet, that's a discontinued Intel part. I'll go back to, let's go back to Chrome here and look up that Ethernet adapter again. Was it 225V, I think it was? Let's see, Intel. Or the 225LM. I think it was 225V. It was launched Q4 of 2019. And I saw somewhere that it was discontinued. Maybe I'm looking in the wrong place. Yeah, launched, where'd it go? Oh, no, I guess maybe it isn't. It's still current. $2.71. You know, I see expected discontinuance. So it looks like it's just an ongoing thing. So I got to write to them and see what's going on with this thing. Because that's the adapter that it has. But we will get to the bottom of that, or I will on your behalf. So let's launch 3D Mark. So I'm thinking there's some kind of hardware issue with this one. And Win32 says, use Netscape Navigator. We might because it won't be much faster. And DJ says, could be recycled adapters if they're out of production models. That could be. And Corey would use this as a firewall. Yeah, this would be great for that if the adapters would work at the right speed. Absolutely. All right, so we're going to run the time spy just to get a baseline here. And we've looked at a couple of years ago. So this chip was in a lot of lower cost laptops years ago, two or 3 years ago. There was an Acer that I looked at that was, for the price, was an excellent machine. And this has the same processor family as that one. I think that one was a Ryzen 5. This is a Ryzen 7. So this has more cores, but I think the graphics performance is the same. And there are now like these Ryzen 9 PCs that are really sick. Absolutely. This one is on the opposite end of that spectrum. But I'm thinking, Michael, that there's got to be a firmware update. And I'll check on Chuwi's website to see if there's anything there. What you'll find with them is that you don't get a lot of support. And that's why I always say to people, like, with these, you got to be careful. And their website is down as I'm trying to connect to it. Now, the speed that you see here is not unusual. Like, I don't expect this to run very smoothly. And that's because this demo is designed for a computer running with a much beefier discrete GPU. But what's nice about this is that it gives you a good baseline versus those to kind of get a feel for what its raw performance is on paper. And then we can compare that with other machines. So we'll let this kind of run its course here. Oh, there goes the fan. It's surprising the fan wasn't running that hard until it just switched screens here. And this is the second graphics test. Now this test in particular runs at, I believe, 1080p. At least that's the one that we run. There's another one that runs at a higher resolution, but I tend to stick to this because we tend to look at lower end hardware here for the most part. And by the way, tonight on the channel, we are going to be getting a sneak peek at some upcoming Lenovo devices. I was out in New York City about a week and a half ago because they had a preview of what they were showing at Mobile World Congress. And so I got to see all their prototype machines that are coming out later this summer. And one of them is really interesting. It's an ARM-based ThinkPad with the new Generation 3 Snapdragon chip. And again, this is running as I expect it to run, not too quick. And I got a tweet from Martin about this particular this network NIC. It is affected by packet loss disconnects. And it looks like there was a recall from ASUS about this issue. Oh, interesting. Whoa. So apparently, so get this one, everybody. I'll put this in the link on the YouTube chat here. So this Reddit article, it links to an issue involving this very network adapter. I wonder if they just bought a bunch of these that were getting thrown out. And there's a beat, so it's the stepping on this particular piece of hardware. So we'll jump back into, I guess you got to look on the chip to see what stepping it is. And I'd hate to go and like rip this whole thing apart just to look for that, because I have a feeling we're probably running with the older stepping. But the bug was apparently within the adapter itself. But you can also install the Intel driver and support assistant to find the revision number. All right, we're going to do that next. All right, we're going to do that after this is finished running here, because I think this could very well have been using faulty Ethernet. Thank you to Martin for finding that link. He tweeted it to me. I was just checking my Twitter while this was running. Okay, so now we're done with this, and I'll give you some context of this score. So if I go to my, by the way, you can go to Lon.TV/benchmarks, and you can see the master spreadsheet we keep for all this stuff. And if I go over to TimeSpy, and let's look at, okay, so the Acer Aspire 5 that had a similar processor as this did, they had a 3200U in that one. We got a score of 474 on that. This one came in at 815, which is actually a very good score, believe it or not. Let me put this into the right spot here on my spreadsheet. You can't see me doing this right now, but I'm just going to type it in. So this is the Chuwi Larkbox X. We got a score of 815, and the frame rate was 5.02 on the first test, 3.93 on the second test, and the physics test came in at 9.85, which is really good. So from a gaming perspective, you know, obviously this is not going to knock your socks off, but it performs close to what you might get out of an MX350 GPU, believe it or not, at least on that test. So it, as we mentioned earlier, you know, a lot of these laptop chips are constrained inside of laptops. On a machine like this, it's not constrained by power or cooling requirements. And it looks like the spammers have found us, but hopefully moderators will take care of that for me here. All right, we're going to get rid of Mr. Webcam Hot here. And they're out of here. Okay. So, performance-wise, from a processor perspective, this is very good. So now what I want to do is dig into this Ethernet thing a little bit further. And so we're going to look for the Intel driver and support assistant. And then I got to run. Intel driver and support assistant. And let's download this. And this might actually solve our driver problem too. Let's see. And we were not getting errors, but I don't know if drop packets would have been picked up in that netstat. Oh, we did have errors, 240 receive errors so far. And actually that lines up because remember we were getting issues on the downstream more than the upstream. And we did not see that before. 240? Wonder if it will increase. Let's go back to speed test and see in real time if we get see an increase in packet loss here. But generally, you shouldn't see any errors, really, right? Let me check my, because it discarded 240 packets. And if I go to my production system here, I've had no errors. This one's had 240 errors. Yeah, so it's staying steady there at 240, but it's definitely, you should not have errors. All right, so let's restart, and we'll get that support assistant going. That was weird. Okay, so we're going to restart real quick. And then we're going to expand and see what version of this Intel Ethernet chip we have. And this could very well be the problem. And here it's green again. Let's pull the cable out and plug it back in. See, this is all the kind of stuff that I get nervous about. Remember, the video didn't work at all with the first cable we plugged into it. So let me just log back in here. And I'm guessing the Ethernet is hard soldered on. And if it isn't, it's still bad, right? Because who wants to deal with this crap? All right, continue. No thanks. I don't know why I'm getting this now, unless there was another update that happened in the background. All right, so let's close this out. All right, so now we're back. And let's go and run that Intel driver and support assistant. What we're trying to do here is get a sense as to what all right, scanning our system. Okay, so it does have an update for the Wi-Fi. All right, so let's go down to the networking. It says this device is working properly. Okay, so this is revision 3. The bad one, let's see here. I think revision 2 was the bad one. As recently as December, we pulled out, okay, with the B2 stepping. So it says revision 03. So I'm assuming that that is not stepping 2. I don't see any reference to stepping anywhere. But I see revision 03. Oh, and that's why it's got the 3 next to it. That's why. Okay. Well, whatever it is, something is not functioning correctly. And it does have a Wi-Fi update, but not an Ethernet update available. So we'll have to keep playing around with this. And I don't think updating the Wi-Fi is going to matter here because we're not using the Wi-Fi. But let me check speed test one more time just for the heck of it. And I will install that driver update. Let's just do that and see what happens. Maybe it'll kick it into gear. Yeah, we're still not getting what we're supposed to get. And let's see if we have any more errors. No errors right now. All right, so let us download. Oops. I guess that Intel thing sits in the background here. Check for new drivers. So the good news is, at least on the outset here, that the performance of the processor side of this is good. It's running, quite nicely as in 4K 60 here on the HDMI, minus the issue of it being green every time we reboot. But this Ethernet thing is really puzzling because, like you would buy a 2.5 gigabit adapter for that reason. There's a question on the Amazon chat about the CAT cable. So this one is 5E, but we also tried it with a Cat 6 cable. Actually, this might be even a Cat 7. This one's a Cat 8. Oh, the one I was using, though, was not. Let me see. The other one is a Cat 6, I believe, is what this one is. All right, let's install the wireless software for the heck of it and see what happens. Maybe it'll install some part of the network stack that's not working properly. And actually, 2.5 works fine over 5E also. That's one of the advantages of it. You don't have to rewire your house, and you can double your speed, or more than double it. All right, installation is done. Click Finish here. And it's going to scan our system again. But I mean, it does feel like it runs pretty nicely. It's not bad. But there's just something wrong with this Ethernet. And that's a problem because, you know, what interested me the most about this computer is that it had not one but two 2.5 gigabit adapters. And that is unusual in the mini PC space. Yeah, it's still dogging. No errors though. And maybe it doesn't like my Unify switch. I mean, that's entirely possible. All right, let me try one other thing. Because as you all know, I have a second internet connection here. So why don't I hook this thing up to my other router, which is completely different than the Unify stuff that it's connected to right now. And let's see if that makes any difference. Now, this is not a multi-gigabit connection. This is just single gigabit, but from a troubleshooting perspective, it's not Unify gear that it's connecting through, and it's plugging directly into a router versus going through different switches. So let's see if this makes any difference. Okay. So now we are on the other network. Now this is only a gigabit connection. Yep, same thing. So here's what we've ruled out. Cables, switches, routers, and it's fine on the upload here. But when we were on the 2.5 gig, it was only going at a certain rate. So the next thing to look at would probably be the iPerf stuff, but there's something not right here, which is just bizarre. So I've got to reach out to them and see what the deal is here. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to dig into this a little bit. And this is why I said that you got to be careful with this stuff. Richard says, mine says version 2, so you should be on stepping 3. Okay. Roman says, I think that quality control sticker is not entirely truthful. It's probably the case. Yeah, and I got a couple more errors here. I wonder if the errors happen when you first disconnect and reconnect. That's possible. But before we had 240. I wonder if they just kind of bank up over time. But there you go. All right. Well, everybody, I am going to have to reach out to Chuwi and see what's going on. We've been at this for 2.5 hours trying to figure this out. The good news is that the performance level of this device, which we will be coming back to in a part 2, the performance level for games will actually be pretty good for what it has inside of it, so that's encouraging. But there's some significant networking issues here, and that's going to be a big deal because if you are downloading games from Game Pass, for example, or trying to stream games, you're going to have some issues with the networking on here. So I think that's an area of concern, and I'm not confident that the Ethernet is working, and that's one of the primary selling points here. So there you go. And Chris Allegretta is sharing with us some virus hoaxes of the past, the Good Times virus. And Gimple is chewing on some of those, or Chuwi on some of those flavored bagel chips. That sounds like a tasty snack. All right, well, everybody, I am going to reach out to them and say, what's wrong with this Ethernet? And see if they can help with that. The good news is I've got something else I can shoot tomorrow, so I'm going to get that ready later this afternoon. But yeah, we're going to truck on here and see where we end up. But I want to thank everybody for watching as we were playing around with this machine. Like many of my live streams, things don't tend to work according to plan, but that's part of the fun, is that we have to troubleshoot. And I think a lot of people like to go through that troubleshooting journey with me. I used to work in IT, so these kinds of challenges are always like puzzles. And once you solve it, you figure it out for future issues. But this thing, I think, is going to be a good performer on some of the things that we're going to test it on. But if that Ethernet doesn't work, that's going to be a big issue. So I am going to reach out to them. We've done all the driver and system updates. Something's just not giving us the performance that we should be getting out of here. And Chris wants to know where we can find that spammer. Well, you won't be seeing them anymore until they reincarnate themselves as some other spammer. So it'll happen. But yeah, we're going to come back probably with a part 2 on this one. So stay tuned. And thank you all for tuning in, as always. And I'll be back maybe tomorrow. We'll see. I got to get something recorded tomorrow. Something. And we'll go from there. All right, we'll catch you all on the next one, and have a good rest of your afternoon. Stay safe. Bye-bye.